Every time an AI model answers a question, makes an image, or helps drive a car, somebody gets paid. That's obvious, I think. The question now is, who? It's easy to point at the big AI names you hear all the time, maybe OpenAI, Google, or Anthropic. Ready for the surprise? A massive slice of that money goes to the people selling the hardware these companies need to run those models. And most of the time, that means one giant, NVIDIA. If you removed NVIDIA from the world tomorrow, a huge chunk of modern AI would just stop. That's how deeply Jensen Huang has built his company into the center of this entire wave. But if you were sitting at that Denny's booth on day one, you wouldn't have seen this destiny. You'd just see a few engineers betting their careers on a strange approach to graphics chips. What turned that bet into a $5 trillion AI empire is Jensen Huang was born in Taiwan in 1963. When he was still a kid, his family moved to Thailand for his father's work. Then, at just 9 years old, his parents sent him and his brother to the United States. They ended up at a small Christian boarding school in rural Kentucky, surrounded by kids who spoke a language he didn't understand. Now, he was neither the rich foreign student nor the genius in the spotlight. He was the outsider who had to earn every bit of respect. When you grow up like that, you don't assume the world owes you anything. You assume you'll have to outwork everyone just to stay in the game. Eventually, his parents moved to Oregon, and Jensen joined them there. As a teenager, he worked at Denny's, washing dishes, bussing tables, and serving coffee to people who barely noticed him. After high school, he went to Oregon State University to study electrical engineering. The tuition was affordable and the degree was practical, so he took his shot. He pushed through the program quickly, graduating early and with top grades. From there, he went on to Stanford for a master's in electrical engineering, taking night classes while already working full-time in the chip industry. Those early jobs put him right in the middle of Silicon Valley. He first worked at AMD, designing microprocessors, then moved to LSI Logic, where he climbed into a leadership role. At LSI, he was running a division, dealing with big customers, and seeing how major technology bets and business decisions were actually made. Time to make one on his own. In April 1993, inside a small Denny's in East San Jose, Jensen Huang, Chris Malachowski, and Curtis Priam met and made the decision of their lives. But before getting into the specifics of that, you need to understand the world they were living in at the time. Back then, computers were built around only one thing, the CPU. It was seen as the brain of the computer, handling every task, even the ones it wasn't built for. GPUs existed, but they were treated like gadgets for gamers who wanted smoother 3D graphics. Nobody in the mainstream tech world believed GPUs would matter outside entertainment. To most executives and investors, they were a toy, not a future. But these three founders saw something the industry didn't. They noticed that software was getting heavier, visuals were getting more complex, and the math behind graphics required thousands of tiny calculations happening at the same time. A CPU works on one task after another. A GPU, however, can work in huge batches, or in other words, provide parallel computing. Even if someone didn't understand the tech, the logic was simple. When software starts asking for more than a CPU can deliver, a different engine would be needed. So instead of chasing the flashy trends of the early 90s, PCs, networking, and multimedia, they doubled down on a niche everyone ignored, which is exactly why they could own it. But choosing the right niche didn't mean the company took off. NVIDIA stumbled hard in its early years. Their first chip, the NV1, tried to do too much at once. It mixed graphics, audio, and even Sega Saturn compatibility, and the result was a product that didn't excel at anything. Competitors shipped smaller, better solutions, while NVIDIA burned cash. Within a couple of years, they were on the edge. Months from shutting down, they cut more than half the company and focused entirely on one thing: building a GPU that actually solved a real problem. That decision led to partnering with Sega to supply GPUs for arcade machines. The deal didn't make him rich, but it kept him alive long enough to launch the product that would change everything very soon. The story takes off back in 2006, long before AI became a buzzword. That year, NVIDIA launched something called CUDA. If you're not familiar with it, CUDA was basically a new way for developers to use GPUs for normal computing tasks, not just graphics. This opened the doors for thousands of researchers who wanted faster computing but had never considered GPUs as an option. As more people built their work on CUDA, NVIDIA became the default choice. Switching to another hardware company became harder because the software tools and workflows were now tied to the platform. Moving into the early 2010s, researchers were starting to take neural networks more seriously. Models were getting bigger, data sets were growing, and everyone wanted more computing power. The problem was that most of the work still relied on CPUs, and CPUs were, as already discussed, simply too slow for this. Training a model would take weeks, which made experimentation difficult. Then, in 2012, a research team at the University of Toronto built an image recognition model called AlexNet. Instead of running it on CPUs, they ran it on 2 NVIDIA GPUs. The results shocked the field. The model trained dramatically faster and achieved an accuracy that had never been reached before. For many people, this was the moment they'd finally realized that GPUs were the ideal engine for it. Inside NVIDIA, Jensen Huang and his team had already placed a long-term bet on parallel computing becoming the backbone of future AI. The AlexNet breakthrough confirmed that their assumptions were correct. So, by 2013, NVIDIA began repositioning itself from a gaming-focused company to a computing company built for AI, deep learning, and data-heavy workloads. They built new product roadmaps and improved their GPU architecture. By the time companies, universities, and cloud platforms started demanding serious AI hardware, NVIDIA was already way ahead. Most tech companies go through CEOs the same way they go through product ideas. New leader, new strategy, new direction. NVIDIA never had that problem. Jensen Huang has been running the company since the day he helped create it, and staying in that seat for over 30 years is almost unheard of in Silicon Valley. That stability, though, is what allowed NVIDIA to stay focused. Instead of chasing every trend, Huang kept the company aimed at long-term opportunities, even when they looked risky or too early for the market. Even today, Huang isn't focused on the next quarter or the next chip. He talks about the next era of computing itself, from physical AI to autonomous machines. In his mind, NVIDIA is just getting started, and the real wave he's preparing for is still ahead. And here's the part people rarely talk about. NVIDIA actually created a massive amount of shared wealth, too. The early employees who took a chance on Huang saw their stock turn into the kind of money that changes a family's entire future. Even engineers who joined during the tougher years when NVIDIA wasn't a household name ended up becoming millionaires once the AI boom hit and the company skyrocketed. So before you chase the next big startup idea, ask yourself, am I building the foundation? Am I the one selling the picks and shovels? Have I actually thought 10 years ahead? If the answer is yes, you're probably on the right track. If it's no, that might be your signal to step back and recalibrate. If you enjoyed this video and want more stories like these, hit like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching.